Something pretty big is happening just north of the US border. Canada seems to be making a major economic pivot, looking away from its oldest and closest ally. We're going to break down exactly why this is happening and what it could mean for Canada's future.
And really, it all boils down to this one pretty provocative question. For more than a century, the US and Canada have been joined at the hip economically. So, is that all about to change? Is Canada really leaving America behind? To understand why this is all happening right now, you really got to follow the money. Even with all the uncertainty in the world, Canada's economy is actually showing some remarkable strength. We're talking a projected GDP growth of 1.7% for 2026. Now, this isn't just a simple rebound. It's the solid ground they're using to launch this confident new direction.
So, what's really pushing Canada to make such a huge move? Well, you've got to look south of the border. That century-old partnership with the United States, it's showing some serious cracks. You see, for decades, Canada built its entire economy on the assumption that trade with the US was stable, predictable, a sure thing. But a new wave of American protectionism has just shattered that stability. It's forcing Ottawa to face a new and, let's be honest, a very uncertain reality.
And this isn't just some vague feeling, we're talking about specific actions with real-world consequences. You've got steel and aluminum tariffs hitting heavy industry, threats to the absolutely vital auto sector, and just this general cloud of uncertainty hanging over the whole North American trade deal. This stuff is directly impacting Canadian businesses right now.
And the impact? It's severe. Just look at this number for a second. A 19% slump in Canada's steel industry. That's the real-world cost of all this unpredictability. We're talking about factories, jobs, and whole communities feeling the heat from decisions being made hundreds of miles away in Washington. So what this does is, it completely flips the script. The old way of thinking was, the US is a reliable partner. The new reality? US policy has become undependable. The very trust that the entire economic relationship was built on, well, it's eroding.
So you can't just sit back and do nothing, right? A new strategy is emerging, and it's being championed by some really influential people, like the former Bank of Canada Governor, Mark Carney. It's a bold plan for a much more economically independent Canada.
And this quote, it really gets to the heart of this new mindset. It's a declaration. When you hear powerful voices like Carney's, who also ran the Bank of England, by the way, it signals that Canada is done being a passive player. The goal now is to actively shape its own economic destiny. The core of this whole strategy, the one Carney's advocating for, is something called economic diversification, which, is really just a fancy way of saying, don't put all your eggs in one basket. The idea is, by building new trade relationships all over the world, Canada can protect itself from future shocks coming from the American market. And look, this isn't just talk. It's not some white paper sitting on a shelf. This is already moving from strategy to action. Canada is out there, right now, actively making moves and pursuing new partnerships all across the globe.
And they are moving fast. I mean, just take a look at the diplomatic calendar for 2026 alone. You've got signs of a major trade pact with China, talks to expand the free trade deal with the EU, exploring new energy deals in the Middle East, and a huge push to secure new, more resilient supply chains in Asia. This is a full court press on a global scale. And every single one of these moves has a crystal clear goal. It's about tapping into new markets for growth, like China. It's about securing Canada's role as a global energy powerhouse. And it's about making the country's supply chains way more reliable. The ultimate vision is to create what Carney calls one Canadian economy, one that has real influence on the world stage. So when you put all these pieces together, what do you get? Well, you get a completely new economic reality for Canada, one that's being shaped by this really decisive global pivot. And this chart here really shows you what the end game is. The point isn't to, completely cut ties with the United States. No way. It's all about rebalancing the scales, stabilizing the trade with the US while aggressively growing trade with everybody else. It's like building a healthier, more stable investment portfolio for the entire country. So what we're seeing is the emergence of a new Canada on the world stage, one that's more independent, yet at the same time more globally connected than ever. A country that's seen as a reliable partner, one that's resilient to shocks from any single market, and one that's positioned to grow, even as others might be faltering. But, as this whole new chapter gets started, it leaves us with one last really important question to chew on. In this big move away from relying so heavily on the US, is Canada actually charting a truly independent course? Or is it just swapping one dependency for another with new global powers? That, right there, is the big question that remains to be seen.